Good morning, everyone. So I'm Leticia, but you can call me Letty. I think there is an intro slide coming up. And so this is the Get Your Plate in Shape session that I offered in March. I presented in March. So is there anybody here who attended the session in March? Good. Okay. So I can keep all the same slides, right? Okay. So I'm really glad to be here and excited to see the interest in this event. And this presentation is an offshoot of a 90-minute class that I present at Kaiser. So it's a slightly different format, as you'll see from other presentations here. I'm hoping that you'll able to use practical tools to evaluate what you're doing with your meals, and by the end of the presentation, come up with an action plan. So I hope you did your homework. What was your homework? Anybody remember? Maybe do the food log? There was a food log, but anyway, if you didn't, it's okay. You can do that after. So the food log also serves as a memory test, right? Trying to remember what you ate the day before. So I actually have to tell you the truth. I was stressing about the jokes because Dr. Kamal says they like jokes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But she said that's all been taken care of from the last session. So thank goodness. Okay. So question to you. And hello, participants who are online. Okay. We know you're there. How many of you have ever thought that it would be cool to have a dietitian in your own house? Raise your hand. Okay, we got like about 5, 7. Okay, well, if you talk with my husband, you'll probably change your mind. Okay? Okay, so the Get Your Plate in Shape activity worksheet was included in your packet. And again, if you did get a chance to answer it, great. If not, you can do it as we're going along. And so basically, these are kind of the keystones to eating habits that can help improve your health. So the way you answer these questions is you ask yourself the question, and then if you do the behavior most of the time, then you can give yourself a score of 7. And then if it's some of the time, maybe it's a 3 or 4. And if it's never, then it's a 1. So again, it's just, a simple tool to start using. And some of you may have studied a lot of nutrition. You may be doing all the right things, and that's wonderful. So just realize that this is a kind of a working presentation, like looking at doing the actual behavior change, okay? Because a lot of my patients will say, Letty, I know what I need to do. It's just doing it, right? Translating the information to the actual behavior change. So I am a licensed clinical dietitian at Kaiser for many years, and so I've been really fortunate to work with many of our members to help optimize their nutrition. And so today we're going to talk about using food as medicine, creating individualized goals to improve your health. And I'm part of the Center for Healthy Living team at Kaiser Permanente, Hawaii. So it's a team of dietitians, coaches, and weight management program, lifestyle weight management program. Okay, so we're going to talk about tools to evaluate your eating. We're going to learn ways to enhance your nutrition. And then the hard part, making the plan for change. So my grandma, Chinese grandma, lived to 104. Yeah, anyway, so she kind of knew what I did, but then she would tell me, oh, your job easy, yeah? You just talk to people, yeah? And I'm like, oh, it's really hard to make changes, especially in eating. Little do you know, okay? Anyway, and then of course we'll go over summary. All right, and questions at the end. So first thing is asking yourself why. Why do you want to make changes? Why did you sign up for this session? How many of you agree that changes are easy to make? Raise your hand. Are changes easy to make? Ooh, yeah, these guys. Very good. Oh, no, it's not easy to make. Yeah. So most people say, no, not easy. So asking yourself the why, always going back to why am I trying to change my whole milk to skim milk? Why am I trying to get cruciferous vegetables in my diet? Okay, so again, when you encounter barriers, go back to the why. And I'm sure you've heard this, we are what we eat. And the first thing on the list is chronic inflammation. So most people will think about inflammation as swelling, redness, pain. So inflammation is supposed to be a short-term process that helps with healing, right? When you get a cut and you're in the process of healing. But what happens with chronic inflammation, and some of the factors contributing to chronic inflammation are negative lifestyle factors, not just the diet, but the lack of sleep, the lack of activity, the high stress. The inflammation can actually help with everything else. Influence everything else, okay? So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to decrease inflammation in, any form possible. The other positive thing about the lifestyle changes is gene expression. How many of you have heard about epigenetics or gene expression? Okay, just a couple. So we know that genes or genetics are very important, right? Whether a person can have the diabetes gene, the cancer gene, and so family members may be more likely to develop that disease. But now we know that positive lifestyle factors can either suppress the gene or we say dim the gene so that, it's less likely to develop that disease. So really powerful stuff. And again, all of these are related to everything you see on this list, right? So again, looking at this and your personal medical history, ask yourself, what are the real reasons why I want to make changes? Okay, some people just say feel better. How many people want to feel better? Have more energy? Yeah, so it doesn't have to be that specific, but it has to be something, right? And I know, you may be living with family or a community, senior community, influencing other people. That's so powerful. So, you have kind of the chance to impact our community with changes that you make. So that's pretty exciting. So before we talk about the food itself, we'll talk about the gut biome. And I know you've had, presentations on the gut biome, so I'm not going to get into it so specifically. But as we know, the gut biome is made out of trillions of bacteria. And of course, we have the harmful bacteria, but we also have the beneficial bacteria. So what are the roles of the beneficial bacteria? How are they helpful? And I know I'm supposed to wait for questions at the end, but you can shout it out if you want. What does your gut bacteria do, the beneficial bacteria? Any digestion? Yeah, now, that's a big one. Anything else that comes to mind? What was that? Vitamins, very good. Yeah, production of vitamins, enzymes, amino acids, lots of things. So your beneficial bacteria actually helps to decrease inflammation. We talked about digestion, therefore helps with immune system, protects you from toxins, and then the last one, vitamins, minerals, and enzymes. I mean, this is just a short list, okay? There are many more things. So again, protecting that gut biome is also related to decreasing inflammation. And I know some of you have done a lot of reading in this area, okay? So if it's a repeat, excuse, but again, we're going to translate this information into making a behavior change or change in your eating. And the big thing is brain health. Well, first of all, back to the immune system. We actually know that 70% of the immune system lives in the gut. So I don't know how many of you have known that. And then when we talk about brain health, the gut is often called the second brain, since 90% of serotonin and 50% of dopamine, which are two important mood hormones, are produced by these bacteria. So that's, related to that gut-brain axis that everybody talks about. So what's a good way to boost the gut microbiome? Michael Pollan, he's a food activist and journalist. He came up with this phrase, and I'm sure some of you have heard this. And what he says is eat food, the real food, not the ultra-processed stuff, not too much, so eating the right amount to fuel your body, and mostly plants. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So that's how we can sum it up. He also says if it's a plant, eat it, and if it's made in a plant, don't. Okay. So when you're looking at Adventist Health Study, this was done a while ago, but it was done with 60,000 patients or subjects, and there are many more studies, that pretty much replicate the same data. What we find is as people move more toward a plant-based diet, BMI goes down. So BMI is body mass index. It's a measure of healthy weight. And the prevalence of diabetes goes down. So what you'll see in the red bar is the SAD diet. Anybody know what the SAD diet is? High sugar, yep. Anything else? Oils? Salt, okay. Oh, you got the answer to the next slide. But anyway, so shout it out when the time comes. So SAD is also standard American diet. Yeah. So as you can see, the red bar is standard American diet. If a person chooses to cut out the red meats, or what I call the four-legged animals, then that's that orange bar, which is a semi-vegetarian. So some of you might already be following a semi-vegetarian diet, or eating style, I like to say. And then you may decide, I don't want to eat any more of the two-legged critters. I'm just going to eat, things that swim, which would be like the fish or seafood. So that would be like a pescatarian diet or eating style. And then at one point in time, and I'm going to have some of you raise your hands if you want to share, but anyway, at some point in time, you may say, I'm not going to eat anything that's alive, but I will eat the animal products like cheese and milk and yogurt. So that's the lacto-ovo-vegetarian. And then last step is vegan, which is nothing from animal, even the animal products. So can I have a show of hands? Anybody following a vegan diet now? Okay, a couple. What about lacto-ovo? Okay, and then semi-vegetarian, how many of you have? Okay, so again, everybody's at different stages. There's no right or wrong. We just, want to be aware of what our food choices are. So when we're looking at the activity worksheet, these are some of the main components related to those questions in the activity worksheet, okay? So the first question has to do with meal timing, right? I know it says, are you eating 3 meals or more? But you can rephrase that question to 2 or more meals. Okay, we're no longer like saying, okay, you got to eat 3 meals a day, you got to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 2 or more meals can help to support your nutrition needs. It really depends, right, on how well you're planning your meals and snacks out. So anyway, if you do consistently eat 2 or more meals, you can answer, give yourself a score of 7. And what are the benefits? As you can see here, provides you with energy, prevents overeating, or, when you're starving, people tend to binge. Somebody mentioned metabolism, so it can boost metabolism. And some of the studies show that breakfast eaters, not the bacon, egg, and Portuguese sausage, but the breakfast eaters did have, lower risk for heart disease. So those are some of the benefits. So think about your meal timing. It's also a challenge. As we get older, we might not be as hungry, right? Lower appetite. I know some people have chronic pain. There's different barriers. And so it's really important to be aware of, the times that you eat and how frequent, how consistent you are with your eating. The second question had to do with meal timing, right? And so we know that, we're not going to have healthy food in the house. We can't eat it. So, of course, it's really important to have those foods, and we'll talk specifically about the foods a little bit more. And that's going to lead to better nutrition and less junk foods if you're buying the right types of foods. Now, talking about the gut biome, we know that the more variety you have in your plant foods, the more variety you'll have in your gut biome. And your gut biome, the more variety you have in your gut biome, the increased role it will have in, performing all those functions that it needs to perform. So that's an important thing. What's 5 a day? Anybody know 5 a day? It's 2 something. Yeah, thank you. 2 fruits and 3 vegetables. So just think about yesterday. Did you have 2 small servings of fruit? Did you have 3 vegetables? And I'll show you the servings. Sometimes it's hard, you haven't shopped, or budget could be an issue. So again, just being aware, setting a goal can help you get that 5 a day. And so actually the 5 a day question, the whole grains and starch question, as well as the eating beans weekly, all have to do with fiber. Okay, how many of you eat legumes, lentils, the beans weekly? If you don't mind sharing. Okay, about a third of you. So we know that coming out of this session, there's possibilities for setting a goal. All right, so fiber can help with decreased risk for cardiovascular disease. It can help with decreased risk for certain types of cancer and really all-cause deaths as well. So fiber's the key, and I love talking about fiber because it's something you can add. It's not something we're eliminating or restricting you from. So back to the healthy bacteria. What is the main source of fuel for your healthy bacteria? Anybody want to shout it out? Feel free. It is fiber. Yeah, so that's what fuels that bacteria. Now, how many of you are taking probiotics? So we just have a small amount of people taking probiotics. So what is the difference between, the probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics? So the reason why people take probiotics, whether it be through pill form, or maybe eating kimchi, or sauerkraut, or natto, or kombucha, is they're introducing that good bacteria in the gut. But to sustain that population of good bacteria, the prebiotic, which is the fiber, is one of the most important things. So I'm not sure if that's new information for you. So really keeping that fiber up. And the benefits from the good bacteria really relate to the postbiotics. I learned that term actually recently. But anyway, the postbiotics, you guys want to know what the definition of the postbiotics are? They're like the byproducts of, the probiotics. So they're the byproducts, and they're the ones that benefit digestion, immunity, affect your mood as well as hormones. So again, in order to sustain that level of good bacteria, we need to get enough fiber. Has anybody tracked fiber before at all? Okay. Is anybody looking at labels, fiber on the labels? Okay, just a couple. So most of us look at what? Calories, fat, sodium, but fiber is actually pretty important. So this is related to the 5-a-day, and so these are samples of the servings. So, you know, a small apple or apple size of a tennis ball would be a serving, and then maybe, and you know, everybody has a different size fist, but you can kind of use your fist too and use it maybe as a 1-cup serving. So if you're eating greens, that would be a serving, a 1-cup serving. So this is more than 5 a day, but these just show the samples of a serving. And who can keep track of this anyway, unless you're writing it down or taking a picture? And so one of the tools I really promote is just keeping a log. And it might not be this, it might be something else, like I mentioned, fiber, but logging it so that you know how consistent you are. So that's related to 5 a day. The other way that you're going to get your fiber is choosing the whole grains and starches, which I mentioned. So in your packet, you have the add variety to your meals list. So in the first column, you have grains and starches that we say are whole, they're intact, they haven't been processed. So that's how you're going to get the fiber sources. And so you'll see there's lots of things. I mean, people always will say, what? I can eat potatoes? Are potatoes bad? No, it's an intact starch. Dug it out of the ground, you know, got the dirt off, and then, you know, we prepared it. What about corn? Is corn bad? No, corn is an intact starch. So I do get this question. I mean, people who, you know, are trying to manage their blood sugars or even weight, you know, there are other factors to look at, the quantity that you eat, as well as other foods that you're eating in the day. But in general, those are foods that we would promote. You're also going to get fiber from the non-starchy vegetables as well as fruit. So I didn't mention that fiber comes only from plant foods and not the processed stuff, right? Not the white rice, but the processed wheat in like your pasta. So again, everything that's listed here is the intact, you know, starch or starchy vegetables. Now on the protein list, you do have the beans or legumes. Those are extremely high in fiber. So that is a protein food that contains lots of benefits. And then some of the soy foods like edamame or soybeans. Funny, tofu's made out of edamame, but because it's in a processed form, it doesn't have as much fiber that, you know, I would like, but it is a good plant protein. And then lastly, in the last column, you're going to see healthy fats. So again, if it's intact, so it's nuts and seeds, avocado, things like that, those are going to have the fiber. If it's in its processed form, like the oils, so no matter, you know, people are saying, oh, olive oil is really healthy. Yes, to a certain extent. But because it's processed, it doesn't have the same effect as, you know, eating like the olive or having the whole avocado instead of like avocado oil. So this is a good list to use as a guide. Doesn't mean you have to be following it 100% of the time, maybe 80%, maybe 90%. Put it on your refrigerator and then see how you're doing. If you're, again, choosing most of these things most of the time, great. Okay, maybe there are other factors in your nutrition that you'll want to work on. So the shopping list, and then also just using this as a guide. Don't worry, we're going to be changing the photo later. We've had some comments. Some people say that doesn't look that appetizing, but it's healthy. Anyway, so if you kind of think about last night's dinner, did your dinner contain half a plate of vegetables? Now, if you're trying to manage weight, or you have diabetes or prediabetes, or maybe high triglycerides, blood fats, then the half a plate of vegetables is a good idea. If you're, as well as the quarter of the plate of lean protein, which you found on the healthy plate shopping list, and then a quarter of the plate of the whole starch. So this is a 9-inch plate. The other way you can measure your portions or gauge what kind of fuel your body needs is using your hand. So you could say a palm. So everybody hold up your hand. It's a palm of meat, chicken, or fish. I know for some of you this might look really small, like, oh, I eat 2 palms. And for some of you this might look really big. But again, it is a guide, right? And then the fist of starch or starchy vegetables. If you do need to gain weight, then you might want to do like the quarter of the plate vegetables, and then the quarter of the plate, oh, I forgot to use my pointer here, a quarter of the plate fruit. So again, it has to be customized, okay, depending on what's going on. And you can turn any kind of meal into a healthy plate. So again, try to think back on what you've been doing. If you've already been doing this, great. Give yourself a hand. If there's, more to do in terms of adding fiber and altering portions, then that's a good goal that you can strive for. All right, so we already got the answer from our participant there about the pro-inflammatory foods. So the SOS, yep, okay, basically the sugars. So that includes the processed carbs, like I mentioned, the white rice, the white bread, the white pasta, the oils and saturated and trans fats, and the salts. So it doesn't mean you can't have them at all, but again, they should be, a small part of your eating pattern. So this is sodium is really hard to monitor, right? Because they're hidden in so many things. So these are just some samples, the sauces and whatnot. So the guideline is generally 2,300 milligrams a day, which is about a teaspoon of salt. Okay, that's a teaspoon. But with people 50 and older, or who have diabetes or high blood pressure or kidney disease, the guidelines drop down closer to 1,500. So for some of you that might seem like a lot, for some of you it might not seem very much. But a good guide is to maybe target 500 milligrams a meal. Yeah, and then if you're really having to be conscientious about your sodium, what I usually recommend is measuring out in a measuring teaspoon, the condiment that you're going to use. I mean, of course, it's best if you just stick with the natural herbs and spices, the dried herbs and spices, and the ginger and the garlic and all of that. But, sometimes you do need a little bit to enhance the food. Because it's a balance, right? You want to be able to enjoy your food, get your nutrition, and also, control the sodium. Okay, so think of ways that you can decrease not just sugars, oils, and salt as well, right? So has anybody made any changes or started a new product or tried a new food or a new meal? Think about that. And you can shout it out if you want. Anything new that you tried? So it's hard, So it's hard to identify them sometimes because because especially the sweets, because a lot of my patients will say, well, yeah, I have candy, but it's only twice a week. And then, oh, but then I have a pie or dessert, and that's twice a week. And then I have fried chicken. Yeah, that's only twice a week. But then by the time you add it up, right, the impact on health, is occurring. So again, just the tracking, what you're doing. Okay. So if you're interested in making changes, the most helpful thing is to, be aware. And that's by tracking or taking pictures. Now, this is my new favorite, the second picture here, the Thai toast. Peanut butter, whole grain bread with peanut butter, fresh basil, and a little bit of sriracha sauce. So it's really delicious. Might want to try that. At the end of the class, you do have resources and our Facebook page and our KP recipe link, so you can explore different menu or recipe options. Okay, the second to the last question has to do with alcohol. And so, this is the moderate U.S. guideline. No more than 2 drinks a day for men, no more than 1 for women. And we know that alcohol can affect all of these things, especially inflammation. And so even if a person is drinking moderately, that could still have these negative effects. So again, looking at your personal medical history and deciding, if you are drinking, is this something that I need to change? Okay. All right, and then the very last question on that activity worksheet was about hunger fullness scale. So, and on your food diary in number 3, it says, asking yourself, what am I feeling before and after a meal? And so what this scale is a hunger fullness scale of 1 to 10. So it's generally not good to be at 1 and 2 because, again, we talked about when you starve, you binge, and then, of course, you're also not getting your nutritional needs. A good time to eat is when you're at 3, 4, or 5, where you're physically hungry. And a good time to stop might be at 5, 6, no more than 7. And if you're finding that you're at 8, 9, or 10 a lot of the times, then you're probably over-consuming certain foods. And again, it really is linked to your personal medical history as to what you should do about it, as well as other things, what you're eating. So, but in general, though, this is a good guide. And what I find is that a lot of people are doing the head hunger eating. You guys know what would cause head hunger. So head hunger is eating when you're not hungry in the stomach, but you're hungry here. What do you think the most common reason for head hunger is? Boredom. Anything else? Stress. Yeah. So it could be a negative emotion, it could be stress, it could be anxiety, it could be, sadness, but it also could be the happy emotions. Yeah. So, all right. So think about that. It's just because a lot of times people will tell me, they're just sitting in front of the TV. And again, as we're looking at how important nutrition is as you get older, if you're filling up, on those sweet snacks or salty snacks, and then come dinner time, right, then you're not going to feel like eating. So my mother-in-law is 94 years old, and so that's what she was doing, just eating snacks in between, and then not being able to eat her meals after. So a good way to kind of work on we call it emotional hunger, eating because of head hunger, is writing down everything that you can do that does not involve eating. So really nurturing things. It could be a mini facial, could be hot oil treatment, could be plucking your eyebrows, men for shaving. Yeah, just really simple things. And when you find yourself doing that emotional eating, Like, why am I eating these chips? Or, wait, why did I go for the, third macadamia nut cluster? Yeah, choose an activity that you can do to distract you from eating. So I love that tool. Okay, a meal planning tool. We're moving on quickly. Meal planning tool is the healthy diet, healthy body activity. So I want you to think about last night's dinner. Everybody think about last night's dinner. If you need to jot it down so you remember, go ahead. And what you're going to do is give yourself a star for every category of food that you had. Okay, so there are several categories, so we'll go through them. And again, this is all in your packet. So we talked about SOS, right? The high the oils. So we want to keep with the lean proteins. The lean protein choices are going to help to control cholesterol, as well as inflammation. And what a lot of people don't know is that high fats, the saturated fats, the trans fats, can increase insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, your body's not able to properly function, and therefore blood sugars will go up. So did you have a lean protein? Give yourself a star. You can count on your fingers if you want. You might need your fingers and your toes, but anyway, count on your fingers if you want. Okay, so if you got a lean protein, give yourself a star. So that's skinless chicken now, and it's unfried chicken. So if you had fried chicken, what's that now? Jollibees? Oh, wait, I can't mention, but fried chicken, but you took the skin off, that doesn't count, okay? It's still deep fried. Beans definitely are lean. Tofu, of course, and then seafood. Same thing for shrimp tempura. If it's tempura style, doesn't count, right? But if it's sautéed in a little bit of olive oil, capers, and whatever, then it can count. Okay, are you guys counting? Okay, so lean protein. Okay, so you learned about 5 a day, right? And that's for the fiber. But one of the things that we try to promote is eating the rainbow. So eating the rainbow of colors in the entire day, like getting one color from each of these categories in the entire day. But for the purpose of rating your meal, you're going to see just how many colors you had in your meal. You may not get all 5, but maybe you'll get 1 or 2, okay, to eventually get the 5 a day. And why is that important? Each plant color has a different function. And so let's look at red. Red contains lycopene. It helps with your heart and lungs. And it says on your handout, protect cells from damage, but pretty much all of the whole intact plant foods protect your cells from damage. So if you had a red fruit or vegetable, give yourself a star. The yellow and orange, blue and purple is next. Delay cellular aging. Who wants that one? Okay, all right. So blue and purple, things like eggplant, blackberries, blueberries, purple cabbage. That's a hard one to get, so I put purple cabbage in my salad every day. Orange and yellow, okay, those are pretty common. Carrots, yellow bell peppers, things, pineapple. All right, so that helps with intracellular communication. And the next one is green, lots of green options. And actually all of them are anti-carcinogenic, but this green especially so. And then last one, we even have a white color. So cauliflower, jicama or chop suey yam, mushrooms, onions, and then of course bananas, since we don't eat the skin. And that's been known to help with decreasing tumors. So lots of different functions. There are many more, but those are kind of the highlights of the roles of these phytochemicals or nutrients. So how are you doing with the stars? Counting on your fingers or toes, okay? And then the second to the last is the are the whole grains and starches. So if you had whole grain, whether it be brown rice, whether it be a potato, sweet potato, or quinoa, which is technically a seed, but still used as a starch, give yourself another star. And the very last category is the healthy fat. So if you had fish, you can go ahead and count that. Generally, of course, the fatty fish, the salmon, the mackerel, or saba, which is saba, are the fatty fish. But we'll just give you a star even if you're eating the lean fish like ahi and aku, okay? How many of you put chia or you use chia or flax? So those high sources of omega fatty acids, the avocado, nuts. So there are ways to add a star, you know, like if you're finding you're lacking stars in your meal, then go ahead and add those. All right, so that's our meal planning activity. This one had 7 stars, but we're really trying to go for 4 stars or more. If you didn't have 4 stars, it's okay. You know, think about what you can do. How consistent are you? And again, for those of you who are really consistent, that's great. Congratulations. I think you're doing a lot that you can do to support your health. So these are the tools. And so is any one in particular more helpful for you? Think about that, okay? And in your packet, you have the Mediterranean sample meals, you have plant-based sample meals, just guidelines, you know, if you're kind of stuck at what to eat. We've put these together. We try to localize it as well. And really the, you know, bottom line is CRAP, and some of you may have already done that. And using that healthy plate format can be really helpful. If for those of you who are making any drastic changes, you know, and you're on diabetes, high blood pressure, or blood thinners, you know, make sure your doctor knows about them before you make like drastic either diet or lifestyle changes. And you have resources in your book. So again, we have the recipe links, as well as the food and activity diary that you can make copies of and use at home. And then for some of you who are really techie, you can use the Chronometer app or MyFitnessPal. And these apps will, if you enter the foods and the amounts that you eat, they will add up everything, like your calories, your fiber, saturated fat. And for some of you, that might be like, okay, that's too much information. But again, you know, think about a tool. Think about whether any of these tools were helpful. And of course, if you have your own strategies, that's great. I mean, you know, continue using those strategies to promote your health. All right. And then last thing is setting an action plan. So, you know, think about what you might want to work on. And if it's nothing related to diet or eating, that's great. It might be stress. It might be activity. And when you're doing an action plan, make sure it's the right goal for you. So you'll see this readiness and confidence scale. So 1 is not important, not ready, not confident. 10 is very ready, very confident. No matter what goal you set, you want to be a 7 or higher on the scale, okay? Because oftentimes people will set unrealistic goals. They'll say, okay, I'm going to eat half a plate of vegetables every dinner. And then come to find out, well, they're not even doing it twice a week, and so they're not confident they can do it 7 days a week. So maybe start with 4 times a week. So again, resetting that goal so that your confidence is 7 or higher on the scale. So again, this is a really important tool for success for those of you who want to make behavior changes. Yeah, you can come up anytime. All right. And then we do have these healthy living resources. And again, this is all in your packet. The culinary medicine is open to anyone. You don't have to be a Kaiser member. So Chef Alyssa does recipe demos virtually every 4th Monday of the month from 5 to 6. And then we have lots of other virtual classes that we offer at Kaiser. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That was a wonderful talk. Do any of our audience have questions?
Hi, a couple of questions. The last segment was on constipation, and what works for me is bananas. Apples doesn't, but if you have any other strategies, I just like whole foods. And the other piece I notice for processed foods, I know you mentioned not to eat it, but I see oatmeal on there. So I'm not sure what brand you're talking about, but oatmeal is processed, so I don't know whether that's not a goal for meals.
Yes, so I think when we talk about process, we're talking about, so example is white rice, where, you start off with brown rice and then it gets stripped of its bran and fiber and then it becomes processed. Well, there's steel cut oats and there's old-fashioned oats, so that's kind of those are the ones I would recommend. The more processed ones are the instant oatmeal. Yeah. So, but one tip is look at fiber. So I said looking at the dietary fiber, I usually ask people to look for things that have 3 grams or more fiber per serving. And does anybody know how many grams of fiber you need in a whole day? Tell it out. Anybody? 25. So you need to eat quite a number of the 3 gram, servings to achieve your 25 grams. So, constipation. So it's the fiber. Yeah, I mean, that's individual. A lot of my patients will say banana doesn't work, but it's fiber. Really, the first thing I would say is fiber and fluids. So are you getting the fiber? Are you getting the fluids along with the fiber? So that's where the tracking comes, because how do we know how much fiber? Yeah. Yes.
There's a question about, is it true that cooked white rice is better for you if you put it in the fridge and eat it the next day?
I would say no. No difference between the fridge, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, for people who work out with weights, I see all these ads that say make your workout more effective by taking a protein supplement either before or immediately after the workout. Do you have any comment on that?
Yes, thank you. So for pre-workout nutrition, what we usually say is carbs are the most important thing. So it's not a lot of carbs. It's like 15 to 30 grams maybe, which might be a half a peanut butter sandwich or maybe half a peanut butter sandwich plus a fruit. For post-workout nutrition, the carb and protein combination is important. So you can get that from the foods. You definitely don't have to get that from supplements. And there's a good resource that I use. It's called ACE Fitness. So if you go to ACE Fitness and then you look up pre-workout or post-workout nutrition, that's a good resource.
If you have 3 servings of vegetables in your salad for lunch, do you still need a serving for dinner?
What was the first part?
If you have 3 servings for vegetables for lunch, do you still need more for dinner?
Oh, okay. So if you have 3 servings of vegetables for lunch, do you need 3 for dinner? Not necessarily, but again, you want to make sure you're getting enough of the total fiber. Some vegetables are higher in fiber, some are not as high. And then looking at all the rest of the meal, right? Are you getting enough fiber? So it kind of depends. Okay. Now, I do want to say, for those who are trying to manage their blood sugar, yes, for everyone, 25 grams a day. But for those who are trying to manage blood sugar or they're trying to keep satisfied so they're not going hungry, I think it's helpful to space the fiber out, right? 8 grams at breakfast, 8 grams at lunch, 8 grams at dinner.
I don't think this person is asking about fiber. They're just asking about vegetable servings.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But then the vegetables are, one of the purposes is to get enough fiber.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything redeeming about a Costco chicken? Like if you take the skin off, and you just eat the white meat.
Did the online people hear that? Is there anything redeeming about Costco chicken? Of course, I went up to them and I said, what do you inject in the chicken? And of course, they couldn't tell me. I mean, it does have protein. It's probably pretty high in sodium. I know it's a good way to make a simple meal. I think add that fiber, Yeah, but I don't know what's in it. I tried to find out. Is anybody drinking boba tea? I found out that boba tea uses the hydrogenated creamers. And there's only one place, well, you got to ask, one place in Windward Mall, and they use real milk. So, the hydrogenated oil is equal to trans fats. So, just have to watch. Okay.
Please comment about combining foods in a vegan diet in order to get enough protein.
Yes, so we no longer do food combination. We don't think that's necessary. It's just getting enough protein, getting the variety. I think the variety is important. One of the things that I find is when people do go plant-based, they'll be eating, like 2 decks of cards of chicken. So a deck of card of chicken is 21 grams. Okay, so if they're eating 2 decks, that's 42 grams. And then they'll say, oh yeah, I'm going to eat plant-based. So they have miso soup with a little bit of tofu, or, like a bean burrito with 3/4 cup of beans. So what happens is they've really reduced the amount of protein. They're not eating the adequate serving of plant protein. So that's where you have to watch. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. What about the keto diet? It's very popular now.
So for those of you who are Kaiser members, we have the whole Get Your Plate in Shape, and I talk about keto versus plant-based versus Mediterranean, but in a nutshell, keto diet is high in fat, long-term, short-term, it can reduce blood sugar, it can help with, there's studies that show it can help with seizures, it can help with it's this whole list, and I just blanked out. But there are quite a number of components. But in the long term, it can increase inflammation and affect kidney and liver, etc. So for people who use it for weight loss, we know with keto diet, they lose more muscle. Yeah. And so when they compare keto is the low carb, very low carb diet. But when you compare the short term, people do lose quicker on the keto, but at the year, you're looking at the same amount of weight loss for a standard low calorie diet and the keto. Okay, but of course people want the results faster. So really, I don't recommend, especially for blood sugar too. Remember, high fats can increase blood sugar, and decrease insulin resistance. And so again, initially people's blood sugars come down, but in the long run, insulin resistance goes up.
Yes, true. Yeah, so many of my friends actually having trouble with that. So I have a second question. What is your recommendation about cooked food or raw food? How we balance? We eat more salad and very popular now. And instead of me from Asia, cook food. So combination is very hard for me.
So I think the question is there a benefit to eating raw foods? Is that the question? So, I mean, some people do feel, sometimes you do destroy some of the vitamins and minerals when you're overcooking foods, but at the same time, like if you use spinach, if you eat, you can eat 10 cups of spinach and get so many amount of nutrients, but if you cook it and now you're eating 2 cups of spinach, that 2 cups of spinach in that smaller volume has more nutrition in it compared to the bulky 10 cups of spinach. I'm just looking from a nutritional standpoint. I think it should be a balance. I don't think people have to go to raw foods.
Could you advise on the best fish to eat regarding mercury levels? For example, this person read that tuna has much higher mercury level than salmon.
Yes, so salmon's one of them. And then actually they say shrimp, for those of you who eat shrimp. Shrimp is low in terms of mercury. I think a variety. So first of all, we always promote fish, but eating a variety, like not eating the same, source of fish. Yeah.
Brown rice is preferred to white rice, but there's a problem with arsenic. What's the situation with arsenic? Because brown rice has a lot more arsenic than white rice.
So it kind of depends on why the question is why are you limiting oxalates? Is that kidney stones? Is that, what is the purpose of limiting oxalates?
I'm talking about arsenic.
Oh, arsenic. I'm sorry, arsenic. Yeah, so did you guys know that the brown rice has a higher concentration of arsenic? And so we're always saying don't eat, white rice, eat the brown rice. So the suggestion for that would be to eat variety of starches. Eat potato, eat corn, eat quinoa, eat a variety, have a whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta. So really not eating too much rice, period. Oh, but the other thing is choosing the U.S. source of brown rice versus Asia. I think the analysis have shown that the Asia rice is a lot higher in arsenic. I know.
We'll do one last question from the online and then one last question from in-person. Is granola healthy fiber as long as it doesn't contain added sugar?
Oh, granola is like oats. So you also have to watch the fats, because a lot of the granolas will add a lot of fat, including coconut oil, which is high in saturated. So, it can be a very good, source of fiber. Yeah.
Sounds like we have to read our food labels a lot more.
Yes. Reading
One
food
last
labels.
question from in-person.
I'd like you to comment on yams and sweet potatoes. It was left off your orange list of vegetables, so I'd like to hear what you think about that.
Okay. Can you guys check the starch and vegetable? Is it on there? It's on the first column, the starchy vegetables. But in general, let me know if it's on there in that food list. Sweet potato seems to have more like vitamin A than yams. I know, like yams are so beautiful in color, but that's one of the kind of curious things when you look at the nutritional analysis. So I do recommend sweet potato, like the yellow sweet potato. They're very high in, the beta-carotenes, fiber. And then also the Okinawan sweet potato, the purple. But yams, even though they're very vibrant in color, seem to have less vitamin A. But I think it's on the list. We should go back and check. The first column on the healthy plate shopping list. It should be there. The sweet potato. Okay.